Yeah, it looks like it. I'm not sure. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Show you how your mind is spent. Why can't we be friends? 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 Sometimes I don't speak right, but yet I know what I'm talking about. Why can't we be friends? 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 I know you're waiting for the CIA. They wouldn't have you in the mafia. Why can't we be friends? 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 Why can't we
Why can't we be friends?
She said, let's cut to the chase, pour me another. There's something sweet in the air that's pulling us together. Maybe it's the music, the buzz in my brain.
I think we could go ahead and get started. Wait for some folks to trickle in.
I think it is now is a good time. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at the for our webinar for our Bridging Neighbors and Generations webinar hosted by the Neighbor to Neighbor program in connection with the Coalition for Social Connection at UCSF and CoGenerate. As you may have seen in the chat, we had a prompt there where we would just like to hear from you just to have about a neighbor from a different generation who made a positive impact on you. So feel free to share if you haven't already, or throughout the presentation if something comes to your mind. We'd love to read about it. So I'm just going to quickly go over our agenda for today. In the next slide. So we have a few things prepared for you. We're going to have a let's see. If she makes it in time, welcome from Dr. Carla Personoto, and then we're going to have an introduction by our very own Alyssa. She oversees our Neighbor to Neighbor program here at California Volunteers. And after that, we'll have a chance to look at some real exciting data from CoGenerate, presented by Janet. And but not only we're going to stick with the data, but we're also going to have some really cool case studies prepared for you that will be presented by our presenters Kate, Liv, and Rabba Camille. And just one note for housekeeping. So while we are going through the presentation and you're going to listen to the case studies, feel free to drop any questions that you may have into the chat. If it's something small, we'll try to answer it right then and there. But then we also have opportunities to have a little bit Q&A. We've reserved a little bit of time after each of the speakers. So we're definitely going to be able to get into that. And then even if there's more questions after the presentations, we will be able to talk about it then. So Let me just see. Oh, here we go. Um, and then without further ado, I will hand it over to Dr. Carla Perissinotto.
Hello, can you guys hear me? I don't see a microphone. Yeah, great, great, great. Thanks so much for your patience. I had some challenges with the internet that you'd think in 2025 wouldn't still happen, but here we are. I just wanted to welcome everyone to this meeting. I'm so grateful to see you all. And also just an exciting time that this is our first Social Connection Week in San Francisco and hopefully extending beyond the Bay Area. We're also hoping it is the start of more to come and that this will be an annual occurrence for us. I want to just talk a little bit first about our lab at UCSF. For those of you that may not be aware, our Social Connections and Aging Lab at UCSF really started after I started some work back in 2012, looking at loneliness and isolation in older adults, just things that I was seeing in my own patients in our own community. And that work really led us to continue the work that we're doing now with all of you, which is really about we know about the health effects, but now what can we do about it? What you'll see on this slide is a link to our lab, and a link to additional papers that you might be interested in. I know some of you, as you're presenting to other people or looking for funding, sometimes you need to see the numbers of what this is actually looking at. So hopefully this information can help you. And also always turn to us for resources if we can support what you're doing in any way through partnership or collaboration in terms of how do we find what we need, point me to this resource. That's what we're here to do. I think there's one more slide, perhaps. Great. The coalition really came out of our lab or at our group in 2020. What we realized in partnership with many of our community organizations is that many of us were looking at the same issues. What's going on with older adults? What's going on with younger adults? Why are we seeing more loneliness and isolation in our communities? And how can we work more together? So with support from the Long Foundation, we established the Northern California Coalition for Social Connection in 2020. And these are our goals. Our goals are to serve as a resource, as I just said, about evidence-based research and programming. We also want to promote collaboration between programs, institutions, and our communities, which is why we're all here. Ongoing raising awareness. I have to say that I gave a talk yesterday at Kaiser for the Aging Well Summit, and it still surprises me that some of the information and the data we have on loneliness is still known to people, which means that our work here to continue to raise awareness continues to be incredibly important, whether it's with our colleagues or our community members. And then, of course, at the center of all this is like our goals are really to enhance social connection amongst older adults. Our coalition has a focus on older adults, but clearly we know that this is an issue that is age agnostic, and part of that is also intergenerational, which is why this session today is also incredibly important. In partnership with Dr. Lisa Lee and the governor's office and Volunteers for California, we're excited to see about how we can make some of this statewide and continue advocating for funding and policy changes to support our social connection initiatives, which do include intergenerational program, because we know there's also evidence behind that. So that is our coalition. If you are not a part or know other people that should be a part, please also reach out to us to say, hey, there's this other organization. Either you let them know you should be part of a coalition, because as we know, greater numbers and greater voices at a time when there's so much divisiveness are incredibly powerful. And that's what we're here to do. So please spread the word and keep us working so that we can really feel more connected. I think that might be it. Maybe.
So much for that introduction. We do have one quick question in chat. Someone's wondering on the lower bottom, we talk about enhanced social connections among older adults, and what age range that might be when you talk about older adults.
Oh, such a fantastic question in terms of what does an older mean. So it depends. It is a great medical answer. Often we think about people over the age of 60. But also I think about that as a broad term, because sometimes we see people with premature aging because of disability or other things going on in their life that may make them have premature aging. So that's generally what we say as older adults. As a geriatrician, my mean age in my practice is 85. So for me, the older adults are much older. But for these purposes, as we think of older adults, is over the age of 60.
So much.
All right, this is the my last slide. I think this is for me too. As I mentioned at the start, this is Social Connection Week. We're really excited about what we've been doing so far. It's such a great culmination of effort from so many different organizations working together via the coalition. So as you can see today, we're bringing the neighbors and generations. That's what this webinar is today. Tomorrow evening, there is a community celebration at Ruth's Table, which is a fantastic art space in the Mission. It's really there to be intended to practice what we preach and actually connect with people that we know and people who we may not know. I believe I've coerced my husband to cook some, he's a chef, and so I've coerced him to bring some food to the event too. So please come out. I unfortunately will not be there, which is really annoying to be on a flight to Wisconsin to give a lecture in Wisconsin. So please eat on my behalf and make friends on my behalf, and really hoping that you can be there and spread the word also. So again, spread the word. And then as our partners here during this meeting are talking about, the other part this week is launching of the Meet Six Neighbors campaign. I heard that there was an interview this morning on KQAD about some of this work. So please also spread the word and participate in the challenge by getting to know your neighbors. All right. There's more information about the celebration on, oh no, that's, I think that date is wrong, right? It's on Thursday. I think we had the date wrong on there, but close. October 9th, Thursday, tomorrow. I think that's the day. I don't even know what date it is, but yes, I think that's tomorrow. All right, so please join and feel free to spread the word.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, my name is Alyssa Lee. Thank you so much, Carla, for that welcome. And if she sounds familiar, you may have caught her on KQED this morning talking about Meet Six Neighbors and the Social Connection Week and the importance of connecting with our neighbors. I get to serve at California Volunteers Office of the Governor, and I'm a little bit biased, but I truly believe that neighborhood connections are one of the most powerful tools we have for our mental and physical health, for our democracy, and for our sense of community and belonging. So thank you all so much for being here. Just a little bit of background, if you go to the next slide. California Volunteers, we are the governor's office tasked with engaging Californians in service and volunteerism, whether it's climate action, disaster response, or tackling the loneliness epidemic. We like to think of civic engagement as a pyramid. So whether you have a year, a day, or even just an hour to give, there's a way for you to contribute. And I think I'm seeing some folks in the chat wanting to volunteer. So that's really exciting. But just to share a little bit about Neighbor to Neighbor, we started during 2020 during the stay-at-home order. Governor Newsom launched it in partnership with OES, Department of Aging, and Nextdoor to ask people to check in on their neighbors during the stay-at-home order. And so all these stories started pouring in about people helping their neighbors get groceries, run errands, pick up medications. I think over 10 million Californians were reached. And so I got to join, I think, in 23 of May, which is when the epidemic of loneliness report came out from the former Surgeon General's office, and really thinking about how do we kind of continue that mission of connecting neighbors, not just in times of disaster and pandemic, but in blue skies as well. And so if you go to the next slide, we started with a kind of 6-month listening and learning tour because we really wanted to know, like, how can a state help to support something that's meant to be so grassroots and so local? To talk to community-based organizations, community members, I think many of you. And we joke like everyone because everyone is a neighbor, and landed on 2 main buckets. One is that we could help to set a cultural norm. We've heard a lot that people do feel isolated, particularly after the pandemic. If I heard the words if I had a nickel every time I heard the words out of practice, I could fund my program over again. And really also thinking about diversity in that California is one of the most diverse states, and people feel, I guess, the stress around cultural expectations or language differences or generational differences in engaging with people. polarization, something we're seeing both nationally and globally. And people just don't know their neighbors as well anymore. And on the right side, we can also look at leveraging and strengthening our social infrastructure. We had done a lot of surveying as well, and people feel that if they don't know their neighbors, they're a little bit hesitant to go knock on doors. And so we also put some funding towards using third spaces, whether it's parks, libraries, schools, local businesses, having gatherings in spaces where people feel safe, making some slight modifications so that there's benches that tilt towards each other so that folks can gather, or lights in the middle, or so people can gather in the evening. Technology, which we know can be incredibly isolating, but can we use it as a tool to get everyone back in person? Since everybody is scrolling, can we get them to stop scrolling and start strolling the streets and meeting their neighbors? And then we really heard that folks feel isolation at all levels. So it's not just the neighbor, but the neighborhood organizer, the local elected leader, the state agency. And so we thought we would do partnerships with folks like the Coalition for Social Connection to connect people who are doing this work. And so thank you all for being here today. I think Dr. Personota shared a little bit about the loneliness epidemic and how half of the US population reports feeling lonely. We also had seen some research that knowing 6 of your neighbors is associated with better mental health and physical health reported. And we know generally that neighborhood connection supports civic engagement. People trust each other more. They're more resilient in times of disaster, both in that we can prepare together, or if, God forbid, a earthquake happens, I can make sure my upstairs neighbor gets out safely. Economic prosperity. And then a new research poll also showed, a 2025 research poll by Pew, showed that Americans generally know and trust fewer of their neighbors. And although they say they would do things for their neighbors, like water their plants or help them in an emergency, they don't think that the neighbors would return the favor. And so I think there's a big activation gap here that we can really tap into. Next slide, please. And so we really wanted to set these 2 objectives. One is, can we help to set a statewide cultural norm that every Californian is a neighbor, and when neighbors know each other, communities are better for it. We have a simple call to action asking people to meet 6 of their neighbors. And then can we leverage and strengthen social infrastructure, working with third spaces, community organizations, other institutions, and local government and community members to foster belonging? Next slide. And so this was launched by our first partner, Jennifer Siebel-Newsome, and our Chief Service Officer, Josh Friday, as of last fall. And we've had a number of local resolutions passed. I think San Francisco is the latest this week, which is really, really exciting, thanks to Supervisor Melgar and the Board of Supervisors. We've also been able to share it with other states and actually internationally as well, as there's a Minister of Loneliness in Japan and in the UK. So there's maybe some pilots in Japan hopefully happening. And I think so far we have about 21,000 Californians signed up. Next slide. And so we've been working to pilot a couple of different initiatives across the state in rural, suburban, and urban communities. We've had over 1,000 events in the last year with 21,000 signed up, although folks tend to estimate maybe 45,000 have come to these events. Next slide. And so I know this is very Northern California, San Francisco based, so we're really excited to share that the Board of Supervisors has formally recognized this week as Social Connection Week and the launch of a citywide Meet 6 Neighbors Challenge. You may have seen some of the ads on Muni or social media being launched thanks to the San Francisco Human Services Agency and Department of Disability and Aging Services. I think on the next slide, you can see some of the collateral on the Muni bus shelters. We're really encouraging people to connect with their neighbors. We're really stronger together. And I think one of the things we hear a lot about during this, when we hear from people about this challenge, is that they feel some challenge and hesitation in meeting people of different generations. People tend to hang out in their own peer groups. And so we're really excited to have Janet share a little bit of the research, as well as Kate, Liv, and Rabbi Angel share a little bit about how. And so it's not just the what and the why, but how we're going to get it done. So I think without further ado, the next slide. I'd love to turn it over to Janet from CoGenerate.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Thanks everyone for having me. And I just wanted to share a little bit about our work. I'm Janet O with CoGenerate, and I came to this work because as a child of South Korean immigrants, I didn't grow up with my grandparents, nor did I have much extended family as I was growing up. But my first job out of college was working with a program called Experience Corps in San Francisco that brought retirees as mentors and tutors into Bay Area public schools. And it completely changed my perspective on aging. And I got to experience firsthand what it feels and looks like to serve side by side with people. I was then in my 20s. I was serving with volunteers in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And personally, for me, the 20s were a time when I felt really ungrounded. I was transitioning into adulthood financially, emotionally, relationally. And honestly, it was my intergenerational work that gave me a sense of purpose and belonging and like solid ground. So that is I share that just to help give you a sense of what we mean by cogeneration. So for us, cogeneration is a word that we borrowed from the energy sector and kind of gave it a twist, but it's the power created when older and younger people come together to solve big problems. And we think there could be a lot more of this happening in our communities. If you go to the next slide, and then you could skip to the next one. I just wanted to give a little bit of data around our changing demographics. This slide will animate, so you can go forward once. And this was our population around the turn of the last century. So you'll see it's this downward slope with younger people greatly outnumbering older people. And with each successive generation or age, there were fewer and fewer. So it was a much more young than old society. And now, if you go forward one, you'll see that our demographics look pretty flat, almost like a rectangle instead of a triangle, with about equal numbers of people at every age group. So what that means is that 5 generations can be living and working together. That's pretty common, but actually 6 is possible. And yet outside of our families, we don't get many chances to engage with people old enough to be our grandparents or young enough to be our grandchildren. Next slide. So today, America, our country, is more age diverse than we've ever been, but despite that, we are more age segregated than we've ever been. And social barriers make that so, where we have youngers in school, we have middles at work, and we have older adults often in retirement communities, which make cross-age relationships outside of families extremely rare. And because of that, a lot of our community programs are built within those age siloed structures that keep us separated. And if you go to the next slide, that has led to a bunch of different social issues, things like generational conflict, like okay boomer, things like ageism, and I think a lot of the loneliness that we see is also because of these age siloed forces. So at CoGenerate, we believe that if youngers and olders come together to work together, we can build stronger communities. Next slide. So we did a deep dive into the topic of social isolation and loneliness. And we did this report called Can Intergenerational Connection Heal Us? And in that report, we interviewed 41 experts and we held a community of practice where we had 167 organizations from across the country come together to learn from each other around how can you bring youngers and olders together to address the issue of social isolation and loneliness. So today I just wanted to go over 3 of our key findings, and then later you'll get to hear from 2 of those community of practice members, Liv Schaefer and Rabbi Camille Angel, to get a deeper dive into the work that they do. Next slide. So this is what we found. And at the start, I heard Dr. Carla kind of talking about like the problems are well known in many circles, maybe not in all the circles, but we found that in our community of practice, really people were feeling like we know about social isolation, loneliness, and the dangers of it, enough about the problem. Let's really talk about the solutions. And so one of the most common solutions, if you go to the next slide, is around age gap friendships. Like we've seen this incredible spike in the media around these stories. And I even saw one, a beautiful example in the chat of like a 30-year-old physical trainer working with a 70-year-old, and sounds like there was friendship there. So I feel like that story is there a lot. And I think there's something very special about age gap friendships. And so I'm really curious with the Meet Six Neighbors campaign, like how can we organically kind of set up interactions so that we become friends with people outside of our generation? So here's a little bit about why they work. I think age gap friendships, interestingly, create a no compete zone. So I don't know if you've ever had this feeling of like when you're with people in your same age cohort, sometimes there is a sense of comparison of like, how am I doing compared to them in terms of life and happiness and all of those types of things. And I think in age gap friendships, that kind of disappears a bit, and it really allows us to listen without that comparison. When I was working in Experience Corps, in my 20s, one of our volunteers who was in her 70s, Naomi, she told me that her 20s were the hardest decade of her life. And she said, I would never go back to my 20s. And actually, my 70s have been the best decade of my life. And so at that time in my life, I didn't know all the details about why that was, but hearing that made me feel really comforted and curious about what future age stages would bring for me. And so I think that's also a magical part of age gap friendships, is that ability to open up our worldviews. Another interesting finding, if you go to the next slide, is around creativity. And I'm so excited for Liv and Rabbi Camille to share, but this idea that while it can be hard to approach someone who might be very different than you, if we use the power of creativity and art, that's actually like a hack. It's a way of speeding up connection. So whether it's through dance or music or art or theater or writing or cooking, I think there is a beautiful ability for art to really create a level playing field where everyone is the expert in their own creative expression, and it can bring us closer together and speed up that connection. Next slide. The final piece is around trust. That intergenerational friendships, like any friendship, require trust, and building trust takes time. So I think that's for myself and others, where I'm a program person, so I'm constantly thinking about like, how do we design and set up structures that help bring people together and support them? And I think that is so important, especially at the beginning. But then there is this piece around trust that I think a relationship moves at the speed of trust. And so there is an important element and space that is required to allow that to organically happen and happen in a natural way. So that's what I wanted to share. Thanks so much, and I'll hand it off to the next speaker.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. That is super fascinating. I loved seeing that data statistic, and you can really see how the changes came in like that. Yeah, and it's fascinating to see the different opportunities that you kind of synthesized there. So thank you so much for sharing all that. And what really resonated with me too was like, I don't want to be back in my 20s. Those are very anxious filled times. So yeah, no, so absolutely. Is there, yeah, if there's any question for the speaker, feel free to raise your hand. or just drop your question in chat if you think of it later. Just want to check real quick. And yeah, if there's none, like I said, just keep filling out the chat or reach out to us after, even if you think about any questions that you may have after the webinar. We'd love to connect you. But yeah, let's give it to the next speaker. Coming up is Kate with the Community Living Campaign.
Helps if I come off of mute. Thanks, Felix. You can go to the next slide. So thanks. I'm excited to share a little bit about Community Living Campaign and how we help neighbors in San Francisco lead the way in building intergenerational friendships. Next slide. So to start, here's the next slide. There we go. To start, here's a little bit about CLC and who we are. We help people live and thrive in their own homes and neighborhoods, and we think that that's something that's important for people of all ages. We focus on community building through a number of activities, empowering neighbors, and then taking what we hear as we do our work and turning that into advocacy to make sure that the resources and supports are there on a structural level as well. We know that right now about 25% of San Franciscans are seniors or adults with disabilities, and that this number is growing. And we see that as really good news, as Janet showed where the things are leveling out. We love that people are living longer and staying healthier longer. And that brings an incredible reservoir of strength. It's a source of ideas and energy and creativity and experience. And that is part of what we're doing, is making sure that our neighbors continue to have those opportunities to give back and contribute and be part of a strong community. Our feeling is everybody has something to contribute towards that resilient and vibrant community. Next slide. Oh, back one. There we go. So when we talk about intergenerational, so you heard sort of a standard definition, which is youngers, middles, olders. I think it's important to remember that olders is a pretty big group, and that what somebody in their 60s is doing and feeling in their lived experience is going to be very different than somebody in their 80s. So a good portion of what we do that's intergenerational is working with younger older adults and older adults. And in addition to that, we do try and bring in younger community members from kids on up through people in their 50s to volunteer, to teach, to connect, to benefit from what's going on in the community. And we have a variety of different ways to do that. Some of them are around creative opportunities. Some of them are around community improvement projects, potlucks, and we'll talk about a few of those as we continue. But together, what we're really trying to do is to make sure that we're creating all these little hooks where people can get to know each other in a very easy way, and then have that entree into building stronger and longer lasting friendships. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. So how do we start? So when we're doing this in any community, where does it begin? Well, first of all, we know from all sorts of research, from talking to people, folks want connection. People want to have a sense of purpose, to know that they still matter, and they want to have a way to contribute. And that's true at any age. So we start by asking neighbors and community leaders what it is that they want, and then listening and asking what is it that they can bring? What are the strengths and talents that they are bringing to the table that they want to be able to share back? And this involves a lot of really, really deep listening, because there's a lot going on there, and as part of it is really hearing what the community really needs. What's needed in a Chinese-speaking community is not the same as what's needed in an English-speaking community. It differs by age. It differs by where you are in San Francisco. And then all of our neighborhoods are blessed with a lot of strong folks who can help. So there are other organizations, there are other community leaders, there are neighborhood associations, there are third places. So we look for partners. So who else is in this? Who wants to join in the work? Okay, next slide. And then we start making those ideas a reality. So our what I view as our role at Community Living Campaign is to help neighbors try out new ideas within the context of what we're already doing. And then we support those ideas with resources, coordination, connection, helping with partnerships. And then it really becomes a learning process for all of us. We're all going to come up with ideas that don't work necessarily the way that we come up with them to begin with. So how can we refine them? How can we support where things are going well? How can we retrench when something doesn't go the way we expected? And then once it gets to a point where it's big enough and defined in a way that has some results, then we can help make sure that there's city funding or grant funding or other funding available to continue the program. And then finally, when something's working, it can expand across other neighborhoods and languages as we go forward. So this is a picture from the Community Connector program in Cayuga, and you can see that you've got a whole bunch of people of different ages having a good time at one of the community potlucks. Okay, next slide. So here are a few examples of what we've done in various programs at CLC. So one is our home delivered grocery networks, which is now in several neighborhoods in San Francisco. And there are versions of the model throughout San Francisco run by other organizations, with the largest by the Food Bank. So our version started in the OMI with Dolores McGee, who is a local community leader, who had a few widowed neighbors who were struggling for food, and she wanted to help them out. She started going to a food pantry, and it really wanted to be able to reach more people. And so we worked with Dolores and the neighbors to create a program where volunteers and local staff deliver groceries and make weekly check-in calls. And that has now grown to 3 neighborhoods for CLC and then others throughout the city. But the whole point, again, the hook is the food. But there's 2 things. One is the younger olders and some younger adults, sort of middles, are providing the grocery delivery and making the phone calls. And they're doing that to connect and spend time with older folks or folks with disabilities who are unable to get out of their homes or to carry groceries home very easily. So it ends up building these wonderful friendships and mutual support as those relationships develop. And then the other thing that happens is that as our volunteers age, they go from being a younger older to an older, and the circle of care continues, and they are more likely to accept help and accept grocery deliveries later, because they know that they're part of this strong, connected community. Next slide. So another program, we saw a picture of it earlier, is the Community Connector Networks. And this is another one that started with a neighbor. So Reverend Glenda Hope, who'd been very active in the Tenderloin, retired, and she realized that she didn't know people in her own neighborhood. So she started looking for connection and organized what has become our Community Connector Networks. And this is one that brings people together for exercise, learning, social activities. Again, those are all just the hooks to get somebody in the door. And then what we found is that in order to give it an intergenerational focus, to make sure that there's ways to be part of the larger community, we encourage each connector network to have some community-wide events on a regular basis. So they can be things like painting the statues at Cayuga Park to make sure that they don't rot, painting murals, other beautification projects. We just finished hanging a bunch of sun catchers in Kenny Alley in the Mission, potlucks, live music, good neighbor celebrations that celebrate volunteers of all ages who are making a difference in their communities. And again, it takes time. It takes a lot of opportunities for folks to get to know each other, but you're building those lasting friendships and giving people a sense of purpose. Ideally, wherever we can, we try and make sure that the participants are the ones defining the activities. So if you go to the next slide, this is, go. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so Chinese Tech and Cultural Connections. This is a group that actually now has a very strong connector network, but began on the tech side, and we listened to the participants and neighbors on what it is that they wanted. During the pandemic, For the most part, folks were wanted to stay at home. They wanted to be online. We went from at the beginning of the pandemic, only about half of folks could get online. We got up to about almost 100%. And then as folks got to know each other, they said, well, the tech is great, but we really want to use it as a way to get to know each other better. So we added a culture exchange class, we added singing classes. Um, then they wanted to learn about videos. And the great thing is they've now taken over and done a level of video editing that is well beyond anything I can do and probably most of us could do. And they're excited because they have things that they can share with their grandkids and impress their grandkids. And they distribute those out both through their own social media, and then we do celebrations showcasing those every quarter. And then things continued and said, well, we're ready to get back in person. And so we've now worked with folks, and we now have vibrant programs in 3 neighborhoods that are done entirely in Chinese, where people get together for Tai Chi and dance. Folks have an incredible ability to pick up new crochet skills. So they've been crocheting flowers that we use for a whole bunch of activities. So it really is about hearing what it is that people can do, and then making sure that we get a chance to help amplify that. So the dance teachers are volunteers, the people teaching crochet are volunteering their time. And again, we're recognizing those talents and giving them a chance to give back. Next slide. Another thing that began well before the pandemic are our writing groups. And then during the pandemic, they just blossomed online. And then we added in a chance for people to read what they'd been writing. And this is an example of where working with partners is really, really important. So in partnership with Litquake and Ruth Stable, who's hosting the event tomorrow, our writers now meet for Gen Blend, which is an intergenerational open mic. So again, they got the chance to develop their skills, to grow, and then take that and create opportunities to have time with other folks in other ages. Next slide. I want to make sure we get through. So Alyssa talked a little bit about neighbor to neighbor. This is part of what CLC has been funded to do since spring of 2024. You'll hear a bunch more about it, I think, as we go on, but it has helped us expand our programming, and the outreach campaign that you saw earlier is also helping us get that message out to more folks. So hopefully look for the ads on Muni and other places. Next slide. So what does all this do? Well, we know that it works. So any chance that you get to build connection makes a difference. We have a chance to survey folks as they come into our program, and then over time. Based on that, we know that 84% know a neighbor they can ask for help. 77% tell us they help a neighbor at least once a month. 99% say that they've maintained or improved their health and well-being, and 100% know about resources in their community. So we know this is making a big difference in neighborhoods where it's up and running. Next slide. So what's next? So we're currently working to expand a neighborhood buddies program to match people up one by one, which will be people of multiple ages. The person needing the buddy will be an older adult, and then the person being the buddy can be a person of any age. We think the number will be peers, and then it will be open to folks of younger ages as well. Continuing to strengthen older adult leadership and community contributions, growing volunteering and community funding, and then continuing to keep our programs resident-led and multi-generational. And I think one more slide, and that's it. Yeah, so just if you get the slides after, this is just my contact info. Happy to answer questions or help connect you with things if you're interested.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was fascinating to hear all the activities that you're all doing. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put them in chat. But this was really inspiring to see, and I love even just how you put sort of terms onto the things that you do, like the age, or what do you call the circle of yes, yeah, where it's so true, right? Like if people stay with you, then they kind of understand and grow within that same model. Or even like what is older adults or like the aging, like it's not just a monolith. And I feel like understanding that really helps break up a lot of the barriers and really allows you to dive in. So that's really, really fascinating. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah, it looks like we can move on to our next case study presented by Liv.
Thanks, Felix. Although I saw Karen raising her hand and I just maybe
That
wanted to
makes
make
sense.
space for
Yes.
that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Thank
Maybe I
you.
missed it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go
I'm
ahead.
I'm not a chat person. I can't keep up with you guys. The question to you some point is could you address front porch or home match, which partners singles with people who need living spaces? And it is started on the peninsula side. It needs more support. And what it does is the clearinghouse that helps match make people who need a place to live with people who have space, many of whom are living alone, are in our generation. And also some of them could use, they exchange either money or activities, but it would place it would also address the homeless problem. So can you look into this and add this to your template? It's called Front Porch or Home Match, and it's a clearinghouse that makes sure that the people are well matched and deals all the way with lease contracts and negotiations and everything else, where it's more permanent and less organizing once they get people together. Thank you. Does anybody know about that?
Yeah, and it looks like Carmen put the link in the chat for people as well.
Thank you. That's something that the state could encourage because a lot of people have too much space and they're kind of Americans are pretty selfish about it. But I have a neighbor who has two other roommates and they help cover the mortgage and the bills, and they also exchange socially a lot of other things, and that's an intergenerational thing. You could have students living with older people and helping with minor chores or driving or shopping, things like that, where you're not having to keep organizing big group activities. We have a need for that. Thank you. I'll take my answer off the air.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really a helpful and cool thing to add on to this. So really appreciate you sharing. I think we can hop on to Liv.
Thanks, Felix. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Liv Schaefer. I'm a community engagement artist and educator. I've been doing intergenerational work since about 2018. My work is sort of straddling academia as a professor at the University of San Francisco and then the nonprofit sector, where I'm the intergenerational director with an organization called Engage. We provide social services within affordable housing communities across California and Oregon. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. Today I'm here to tell you about Dance Generators, which is an intergenerational dance company housed at the University of San Francisco. I am the director of this company, and it's housed at our Performing Arts and Social Justice Department. Next slide. So it was founded by an artist named Amy Dowling in 1997. Like I just said, we're housed at USF. We foster artistic collaboration between undergraduate students and Bay Area older adults. We're currently ranging in age from 18 to 93. We have obviously a big smattering of students who are in that undergraduate age, 18 to 22-ish. And then we have a large portion of our current members between like ages 65 and 80. And then we have a few in the 80 to 93 range. We truly just believe that dancing together is a way to bond people in the subconscious and sort of beyond where words can take us. So we use shared movement practices, reflective dialogue, and collaborative dance making as tools for bridging generational divides. Next slide, please. So our programming is designed to expand dance access across generations. So we're really focusing on creating opportunities for older adults to stay engaged with their own bodies. And then also cultivating opportunities for olders and youngers to come together for co-creation and collaboration. This comes through a few different kind of branches or arms of our programming. So we have public workshops that we offer. I'll speak to two that we have going on right now. One is in partnership with Ruth's Table, where we're doing an every other Tuesday throughout the fall here, bringing together olders and youngers and for people, or excuse me, for dance classes and reflective dialogue. Another public workshop we have going on right now is in partnership with the Buchanan YMCA, where I'm bringing a group of students and we're collaborating with their Active Older Adults program. And I'm facilitating a same sort of thing, reflective dialogue, creative movement, a way for folks to get to know each other, collaborate together, etc. We've also got a series of different performances that happen on campus, off campus, in professional dance settings or in community engaged settings with some of our partners. And then we host social gatherings pretty often. We love potlucks. We love to bring people together. Perhaps these are our company members and their friends or other older adults that are interested, but kind of dance generators curious, not quite sure. And then just a series of lecture demonstration type events where I can kind of explain how the body is a necessary tool for connecting across difference. One other thing to mention here is that USF students who participate in this program with me earn course credit through our department at the university, which is a really awesome benefit to them. And it's really important to me that all of our programs are offered at free, no cost or for free to all of the older adults participating. Next slide. Like I said, expanding dance access for older adults is one of the best impacts I think we have. We're also doing a lot of work to counteract the ageism of the dance field. The dance field has a lot of baggage around virtue and athleticism. And so this work is not only great for community building, but also truly impacting the arts sector, the professional arts sector in a meaningful way. And what I notice when I'm training these young artists is that it cultivates a technique of generosity within them. So it's not about that virtue of how high they can kick their leg, but it's about the quality of connection that they have with their fellow performers and with their audiences, which I think then strengthens and strengthens the tether between citizens and arts. And then, of course, leveraging the arts as a practice for connecting across difference, right? When I mirror the movement of, say, my friend Cecilia, who is 76, I learn about the ways her body moves. I learn about her lived histories. I learn about how she's feeling that day, all without any verbal communication. So when there's language barrier or generational barrier or mobility difference, there's still possibility for people to find a real sense of connection. And we're also really deepening bodily connection. So in an age where things are very digital, very tech, very intellectualized, this is an opportunity for people to return to the body. These are practices, ancient indigenous ways of being that have existed long before all of us here, that are just ways to come home to what's true in the body. And then ultimately what that does is create opportunity for healing. Moving energy through the body is an important component to how we can get through things that are stuck for us, and then ultimately what can lead us to deeper relationship with each other. Next slide, please. And so our how the heck do we do this? I feel like a lot of people are sort of like, dance, what? What do you do? What do you mean? Or a lot of people say, I'm not a dancer, right? And I'm truly in this camp here that I really believe if you have a body, you can dance. If all you've got access to in the moment is your hands, you can do a hand dance. If all you have access to in the moment is your eyes, you can do an eye dance. I always tell students, if you've got a hurt knee today, do the hurt knee dance, right? Empowering everybody to believe that they're an artist, I think is going to undo a lot of art trauma that I think a lot of people have in our world, that we think it's only meant for professionals. But really what this is here is play, and play is connection, and connection, is what we're going for here. So the process that I bring folks through is first a shared movement practice and creative exploration. So perhaps we all take the turn in the circle at the beginning of our sessions, leading the group through movements that just feel pleasurable or delicious on our body without any way to be wrong, right? And we take turns following the leader. And creative exploration, perhaps, and bringing a theme or an area of content for folks to explore. That could be something really light and easy, sort of like a food or a color or what we see in the room in the moment, or it could be something really heavy, depending on where the group wants to go emotionally, maybe loss or grief or yearning or desire. And then we do a second step, which is some facilitated reflective dialogue. So the process I like to use includes having an experience and then noticing an experience. So we let the body go first, and then we do a little collective reflecting, usually some small groups and then some large groups to get folks sharing out and hearing different voices and different perspectives on what folks just experienced. And then the third step is some collaging, weaving, dance making, meaning making. We take some of the movements and ideas that were just brought up and we collage them together to make a dance that's something we could remember and repeat, that we could then take out into this fourth step, the engage and share. We can perform that dance in community engaged settings with some of our partners or on campus, host community conversation about what folks see. And again, just using dance as a way to catalyze deeper relationships with one another across all of these different silos. Next slide. Here's a list of some of our recent partners, current partners. Really, really grateful. This comes through some sponsorship, some just like physical host, and also just through perhaps coming together to co-host things at a third site, kind of how Kate was saying. And I just recently mentioned my most recent were the Buchanan YMCA and San Francisco Village. Next slide, please. And just here to share our current focus. So in 2025, Dance Generators began a project called Called. This is a response to cultural divisions that utilizes community-engaged choreography as a strategy for pluralist world building within spiritual traditions and institutions. So we partnered with, we thought to start really local, hyper-local, being university-based. We partnered with University Ministry in the St. Ignatius Parish that's on campus. We brought together some parishioners, some awesome faculty members like Rabbi Camille, who's going to speak next, our students, our alumni, our older adult community members and neighbors for conversations and creative explorations, dance-based explorations through the Ignatian spiritual exercises. So what we would do is offer up some of these spiritual exercises as prompts for conversation, and then actually as kind of generative commissions for choreography or movements. And then I did that weaving process that I mentioned earlier to bring people together and create a physical dance piece. We really wanted to see, really inspired by the work that CoGenerate is doing with faith-based communities, how intergenerational activity can be a tool for revitalizing faith-based communities, and really how we could use dance or the arts as a way to create a more inclusive environment within these institutions that so often have an us and them, right? Oh, that parish, that church, that's not where I go to commune because I'm not whatever denomination, but instead inviting more folks in for a more alternative way. So I know we're going to share out a video with you all for a later viewing, but just to say that the next slide is a link to a short 3-minute video of what we made in the St. Ignatius Parish, and I hope you'll tune in some other time to watch it. Next slide, please. And just some contact information for you, my email, my website, and next slide, please. And we have some classes. I hope you'll consider joining us. These are the classes that are coming up that I mentioned at Ruth's Table and at the YMCA. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Please stay in touch. Thanks so much.
So much for that presentation. That I loved learning about how, you have such a medium that, like you said, there's a lot of ideas around what that could be, what the answer is supposed to be, right? But then to reconnect that and really make these beautiful connections with it, that's fascinating for me to learn too. I've never even thought about it like that. So I really appreciate you sharing. Thank you so much. Yeah, and then just in the interest of time, we're going to move to the next case study. If you do have any questions or anything came up, please feel free to put it in chat. We'll save the chat or reach out to us after, and we'll make sure we get all your questions answered. And then next up, we're giving it to Camille Angel.
You can move to the next slide. I'm introducing myself. I'm a liberal American Reform ordained rabbi, and I'm here in the last 8 years serving at a Catholic Jesuit University of San Francisco, where I get to bring my experience as an activist, as a lesbian, LGBTQ religious activist, trying to undo the trauma of historical religious-based homophobia and transphobia. You can skip to the next slide. My work, I think this is a great text that I use with all my students. It uses the Hebrew Bible to address the clobbering texts to religious-based homophobia over history. And so here from the Holiness Code, we are your neighbors. We're your children, we're your parents, we're your elders. And as it says in our Torah, you shall rise and honor the aged and show honor to the old. Next slide. So that text really helps my students sort of have a instrument to deflect and defend themselves when meeting up against people who would clobber them with hurtful biblical texts. The classes that and the ministry that I have at the university, really this work is about saving lives. And these are just a couple slides of recent opportunities where we gathered undergraduates together with elders. But I want to take you to the next slide because understanding the crisis, there's loneliness and isolation, and it's impacting my LGBTQ family in greater numbers than the average. So if you look at this and the next slide, you'll see really simply that those who feel despair are, in this case, 4.5 times more vulnerable. And the next slide. Same with elders. We're more vulnerable given the prejudice and discriminations embedded in our society throughout history. Next slide. And that's cross-cultural. So this rejection and isolation, lack of understanding, it can actually be interrupted if we have some opportunity to know each other. In 2011, California passed some legislation called the FAIR Act, which required students in public schools to learn about LGBTQ history in their history classrooms. That memo hasn't really gotten to all the schools, and particularly not to the parochial schools. And so students are coming to USF from all over the world. They're coming to San Francisco in part because our university boasts that about 30% across the college are LGBTQ identified. So if we can connect elders and youngers together to learn their history in a classroom, that's tremendously reparative. It's based on anti-oppressive pedagogy, and you can look that up and learn more about that. Next slide. So what came about in trying to identify what could I do to help bridge this gap, I created a course called Honoring Our Queer Elders. Next slide. And the basis is my students are paired in small groups, 2 and 3, 4 students with 1 or 2 elders who they interview over 12 to 14 weeks with in-depth questions. And next slide. The questions, first of all, coming out over the decades, it looks very different. So if I have someone who's 18, 20, who is not able to find anyone in their family or church or friendship circle, suddenly they come to a class and they get to talk with people, next slide, who could be their gay grandparent or lesbian aunt. And they interview these elders, teaching elders, about these are some of the areas where they really want to get to know how has your idea of gender changed throughout your lifetime? And that's a very cool place where a lot of learning happens, where the youngers have a lot to teach the elders. Next slide. I love this notion of like community engaged learning and service learning. Who's providing the service? It's clear that the elders are teaching history. They're the ones that have helped bring the change and live the history. And the youngers, they're creating an opportunity not only to honor and make a place for these folks to share their legacy, but also to help them in the spiritual project of life review, which is something all of us can be doing all the time, but is particularly important, I find, as a rabbi, in helping people face end of life spiritual care. Spiritual life review is a big piece of that. So here the students are able to listen, and then they create short videos, about 10 to 12-minute videos, where they share what they've heard and learned and are holding onto and what they'll transmit to others. Next slide. So the power of one affirming adult is a life-saving intervention. And these adults, we're teachers and mentors and clergy and relatives, and what a difference we can make. Next slide. So I'm inviting, contact me if you'd like to be an elder in a future semester. Always looking to build my Rabbi Angel circle of elders. We need each other, and the students benefit so much. Next slide. This October 1st, we launched an exhibit where you can go and find it, mappingjewishsanfrancisco.com. Our exhibit is honoring our queer elders, where students' projects over the last 5 years, their legacy videos are here. And this digital archive will continue to be added to in semesters to come. Final slide. So this is how you can reach me, both at the university and my personal email. And Mapping Jewish SF, you can check it out. There's hours and hours and hours of student project legacy videos, and you or someone you know might find yourself in this archive. This is something that will be available in perpetuity, and I'm super excited to share it out with you. Mostly, I'm excited to share the idea with you that you, in your churches, in your synagogues, in your cultural centers, could create an opportunity for these conversations to happen, particularly because our LGBTQ population is more at risk, and they're my people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's such a powerful message, and it's super inspiring to see how, especially here, connection can be had and how powerful it can be. And like you said, especially in days like today, these messages are more important than ever. So really, I really appreciate you sharing it all. Similarly, we're going to have any questions or remarks you may have, feel free to put in chat or follow up with the email that is on screen or reach out to us if you miss taking it down. We'd love to connect, of course. Yeah, so we've had so much content, so much beautiful insights and things for you to stew on. So before we let you go, we're going to just have a quick call to action by our very own intern up next.
Hi everyone. My name's Sophia. I'm an intern here with California Volunteers, and just super quickly, in the interest of time, I just wanted to talk more about the Meet Six Neighbors Challenge. And so, like we said before, it's really just a simple call to action of meeting six people that maybe you already know in your neighborhood and reigniting those connections and relationships, or meeting new people who maybe you haven't had the chance to interact with. And so if you guys scan the QR code here on this slide, it'll take you to the Meet Six Neighbors Challenge where you can sign up. Or you could go to meet6neighbors.com and it'll also take you to the challenge. And it's just very simple, very easy to sign up. It's not, a binding contract. It's just something to encourage everyone to meet their communities. And like Alyssa said before, when neighbors know each other, communities are more resilient, mental and physical health is improved, and there's just an overall improvement in the face of disasters and etc. So if you guys scan that code there, or go to the website, and then once you do that, you will be sent our Meet Six Neighbors toolkit, and that just has some very easy and simple resources and ideas, templates to help you on your journey of meeting your neighbors. So we have leaving a kind note, which is just something you can post at the door, organizing a gathering, which is just flyers to organize community gatherings, and then starting a conversation. So we made these scavenger hunts that can kind of help you and give you more resources and ideas to meeting your neighbors and make it a little less daunting, which is basically the goal. And then we just have one ending question here, which is just what's one resource you plan on using to introduce yourself or deepen neighborly connection across generations? If you guys want to put that in the chat. That was just a very quick overview. I think there's will also be a link um, to share your neighborhood stories. It's in the chat there that Alyssa just shared. And yeah, that was just a very quick overview. If anyone wants to answer the question in the chat, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And yeah, maybe as you prepare to head out, maybe just drop us a quick line in the chat. Like you said, we're going to save the chat. And then after this webinar, we'll make sure to send out the recording so you all have it. And then please, and that's just my personal call. It's so important, right? We get together now and we get all this beautiful information, and many of you may feel inspired by the information, but let's make sure to stay in touch, right? Like check our emails for other webinars, or go out actually into your community and kind of put it into practice. It starts with an idea. So we'd love to hear from you, see what's going on, but we'd love to see you again at any of these future meetings. But thank you so much for coming today, and thank you to all our speakers and to you, the audience, for being here. So great seeing you all, and then I hope you have a great rest of your day.